Hey, welcome in. My name's Jason Priester, Clemson Insider. I know we usually do this on Mondays. Today's Wednesday. Um, I'm doing some work for a Legion baseball team in the area over the next few weeks, so we might not. The days over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, they might get shifted around a little bit depending on that schedule. If you look on my Twitter, I'll update it there every week if need be. If you don't hear anything, that means we're going on Monday. And obviously, I'll throw it in the Facebook group if you're in there too. Um, had a game Monday night, so had one Tuesday night. So moving it to Wednesday this week. We'll see. We'll see what kind of crowd we have in here tonight. But either way, over the next few weeks, we'll do it one day. I just don't know what day it's going to be each week yet. I might have to do it the same way next week. I think there's a game Monday night too. But like I said, if you follow me on Twitter at JP_Priester, I have the information pinned at the top of the Twitter page when I find out and tell you what day we're going on. Starting it off with baseball, man. I'd have loved to have been on here Monday night, the day after that game. It was very hard for me not to do this show Monday night, just based off how that baseball game, went, ended, and some of the controversy involved. Just overall very disappointing, man. It's just too many umpires a day want to take the attention off of the game and put it on themselves, and I thought that crew did exactly that on Sunday. I have no idea what happens if they don't meet after Mathis's home run there on the field to start going over things and discussing whether they're going to throw him out. I know everybody in the press box assumed Mathis had already been tossed. There was a shot of him on the broadcast showing in the press box that looked like him sitting in the tunnel there, looking like he had been tossed. So I'm pretty sure everybody in that dugout thought he was getting tossed too. Jack Leggett's chirping at the umpires. Everybody in the dugout's chirping at the umpires. Leggett's the only one that gets tossed. Then they toss Bakich after he comes out on the field. Kind of an overall travesty, man. And I thought it started with the way they handled that early ejection of Jack Crichton, which I also thought was crap. There's no way you can single out Crichton there and he'd be the only guy thrown out for leaving his position. That was the official word sent out. The kid's on second when the ball's hit. He's rounding third as the final out is made. He's coming back to the dugout. Does he turn around and kind of get into brouhaha a little bit? Yeah. But, man, the Florida catcher had left his position, came all the way to first base. The pitcher, in my eyes, I get it. It was a hard tag. Naraki kind of threw his arms up to defend himself against it a little bit. It was absolutely a hard physical play at first, and it could have ended there. But Kaggs has to come back and shove. To me, that's what started the whole thing when he shoves. And for the second year in a row, you get a Clemson player ejected for responding instead of the guy that kind of instigated the whole thing. He's not touched. He's allowed to play on. And, again, I'm not saying anything happens differently. Who knows what happens in that 13th inning if they don't huddle up there for so long and have that lengthy delay to go along with the extra lengthy delay when they threw out Crichton. And I get it. The umpiring crew didn't throw out Crichton. The replay officials did. But it's a hard pill to swallow when he's the only one ejected when so many other players did the exact same thing. Heck, man, you had Florida players coming out of the dugout that crossed over the third baseline into the actual field of play. Again, the catcher comes from home plate to first base. The second baseman's over there at first base. Multiple Florida players leaving their position, yet Crichton's the only one ejected. That means you have to go to McClatty at first base. You take his bat off the bench, left-handed bat at that. So when you want to use a left-handed bat off the bench later in the game, you got to go to Ty Holenchuk, who's not having that bat all season long. It definitely had an impact on the game. Whether anything happens differently in the 13th, I have no idea. I do believe that the lengthy delay there in the 13th did rob Clemson of a little momentum they had seized. I get it. The crowd was still just as juiced up, maybe even a little bit more juiced up after those what transpired there in the 13th. But you know, if there's not the lengthy delay, who knows what happens later on in the top of the 13th after the Mathis home run. Something else doesn't get – I've seen it mentioned a little bit, not talked a whole lot about, is Devin Parks getting picked off at first base ends up absolutely being just a brutal mental meltdown right there. Costs you a run. He doesn't get picked off. That's a 2-run jack instead of a solo home run. And Florida needs 2 runs in the bottom of the 13th to tie, 3 runs to beat you. Felt bad for Ethan Darden, thought he did what he was supposed to do. There's something else that was pointed out to me today. That I think it was the first base hit in the bottom of the 13th. Maybe Hinderleiter is shaded a little bit too far to one side. And Backus not being in the dugout, not setting the defensive alignment, maybe that played a factor there. But, you know, Darden just gave up a couple balls that found holes, man, or 3 of them that found holes, and that's kind of what Darden is. He's going to pitch to contact, let his defense play behind him, and when the balls are finding holes, that sometimes it gets you. The kid was in tears coming off the field, man. I felt bad for him, but overall, you know, it's just a brutal way for the season to end. I get it. Clemson's season didn't end last year against Tennessee. But, man, anybody that doesn't believe that ejection of Cam Canarella late in that Tennessee game didn't carry over into the next day, I would just have to disagree, man. It was just it's like Eric Beckett said today, or I think he said it yesterday on the radio, and he kind of doubled down on it today. It's a tough pill to swallow. And I was glad to hear Backus today, you know, kind of say, you know, I don't care if I'm fined, fines be damned. I'm going to say what I want. He was pretty critical of that crew. He came out and said he thought some personalities got involved and personal stuff got involved. And, you know, the better he came flat out. He flat out said that the best officiators are good at defusing situations. And that's a direct shot at that crew, man, because they did not defuse that situation. All they did was amplify it, made it worse. I mean, what the heck are they even meeting about there after the Mathis home run? Florida's been pimping home runs all weekend. There's been not one. There was no meeting about them pimping home runs, even after the warning. Plenty of chirping going on that field between both sides. No meeting or huddling of the umpires until Mathis hits a home run and slams his dugout down in front of his own, or slams his bat down in front of his own dugout, which is perfectly legal in the rule books, by the way. And they're meeting to discuss whether he should be ejected or not. It's a damn joke's what it was. Flat out a joke. Brady says Clemson got screwed. Yeah, you know, they could have still got walked off in the bottom of the 13th. Make no mistake. Florida still had an at bat, but man, that lengthy delay absolutely impacts some of the momentum Clemson has seized in that game in the 13th. And I fully believe if Clemson finds a way to win that game Sunday, they're going to win Monday. Florida absolutely had nothing left. They had used up all their pitchers, and you saw what happened when they tried to go to Neely in back-to-back days, their closer who's been so good after moving to the bullpen this season. He just wasn't the same guy. He wasn't nearly as effective. He gives up the 3-run bomb to Canarella. They just didn't have anybody else left. And I get it, Clemson's better pitchers had already pitched. But, you know, you still had a couple of guys left that they hadn't gone to yet. Matt Marshall could have started for you. Heck, McGovern threw 3 innings on Saturday. He could have come back and threw a little bit on Monday. Clemson has still had some options they could go to. But it is what it is. Year 2's in the books. You know, you make it to You're a national seed in both the Bakic's first seasons, host a regional in his first season. You break that regional drought in his second season. You gotta like the direction the program's headed in. Um, I'm a firm believer that this team this year probably overachieved a little bit. They did a team that didn't really have a whole lot of pitching depth, yet found ways to keep continuing to win over and over and over again. What was it, 25 comeback wins, I think it was this season, pretty close to the 26th one on Sunday. You gotta like the direction that the program's headed in. Sounds like Will Taylor's going to definitely be gone. Sounds like Tristan Smith is probably gone, but you're going to get Andrew Chufo back, who's that's huge, man. You get your starting shortstop back, and that's kind of when Clemson's season started to change a little bit. It's when Chufo and Taylor went down right there, and I think it was in the same week, if I'm remembering right, but really, really hurt the defense a little bit. But getting him back's good. You're going to lose Billy Barlow, which is not a big surprise to me. I think he's a guy that probably wants to be a weekend starter, and I just don't know that that's going to happen at Clemson. He was the midweek guy for most of the year before getting moved to the bullpen. And then Cooper Glaser, who played a good little bit there at the beginning of the season, then saw his role decrease dramatically. Didn't play since April 19th, I think was the last time we saw him. I would definitely look for Backus to try to add an arm or two through that portal, man. I don't know how much, NIL money they got to work with. They're definitely not bleeding money over there or anything, so he'll have to pick his spots wisely. But I would definitely look for him to add to that staff out of the portal if at all possible. Saw him do it last year with Malstead and Marshall. So I would expect maybe some guys like that. Seems like many non-Clemson college baseball fans agree they were out of line. Yeah, I saw a lot of nationals, national guys on Twitter Sunday night and Monday. I came home right after the game Sunday. I had been gone since the 28th of May, I think it was. So I was driving home after that game. Didn't see a whole lot that night, but I did go back on Twitter Monday morning and start looking at some of the stuff that had been said about that game. Yeah, there were a lot of people that tend to agree with my point of view. It sounds like a lot of you guys' point of view that game was terribly officiated, man. I just go back to what Eric Backer said today about the best officiators, knowing how to diffuse a situation, and these guys just seem to add to it and create more chaos than they were better at creating chaos than they were nipping it in the bud. And, it absolutely impacted the game. Now, does Clemson win if nobody's ejected and those kind of things? I have no idea, but I definitely do believe the way it was officiated impacted the game. Thought it was awesome to see Leggett out there on the field, reminded me of my youth. I've seen Leggett taking some heat for kind of chirping in the dugout, saying that's not his place. I kind of tend to think his place is whatever Eric Bakich wants it to be. And Jack Leggett was far from the only person in that dugout chirping at the umpires. They just wanted to make an example out of somebody, and they chose him. And I've seen some people who have mistakenly think he got tossed after coming onto the field. He didn't come onto the field after until after they tossed him. He's always been a fiery guy. And I'm of the opinion his role is whatever Eric Backett says it is. And if Backett is okay with him chirping at the umpires, who am I to, say it's not okay. Not my place, not my job. Um, Personally, I like seeing the coach have his players back, and I think what Leggett did this weekend to a degree, but especially what Package did on Sunday, that is going to resonate with so many guys they recruit in the future, man. Um, Players love to play for a coach that has their back that way. Making the umpire tell Crichton he was ejected. Little things like that. It, those kind of things resonate with guys, man, and it's why he's such a great recruiter, and he's gonna continue to recruit at a high level as long as he's at Clemson. Our pitching was horrible. You got who you got. It is what it is. You can't rebuild a pitching staff overnight. So you got what you got. You gotta work with what you got. And I think Clemson did pretty well for the lack of depth they've got on in that pitching staff. I thought he might have left Tristan in a little bit too long on Saturday. That's kind of nitpicking though. But that people, they look at Florida's overall record, man, and talk about how they sucked and didn't belong to be in. And I kind of agree they didn't belong. They didn't belong. They didn't deserve to get a bid. I thought College of Charleston got screwed. They should have gotten in, and Florida probably should have been sitting at home. But the more talented team won this series. Make no mistake, man. They are more talented. Florida's got more talent than Clemson does. They've got far more pop in that lineup than Clemson does. And the free passes, particularly on Saturday, killed Clemson because Florida's going to hit long balls, man. They got dudes in that lineup that can mash. But you need their long balls to be solo shots, and Clemson walked too many guys, allowing them to be 2-run homers, 3-run homers. But, yeah, I'm not going to say the pitching was horrible because I don't think it was. Definitely wasn't elite, but it wasn't horrible. But it's definitely an area I think that you'll see Package try to address in the portal. I think people forget Tristan Smith's not 100% healthy too. Here's another thing. 100%. Sending those umpires out there to check Austin Gordon was about as Bush League as it gets, in my opinion. Absolutely 100% Bush League. I get it. It was gamesmanship. Gordon is just absolutely dealing, man. He is smoking your hitters. He's just mowing them down. Even though he's lost about 3-4 miles an hour on his fastball, he's totally gassed. At one point, he threw 9 straight sliders, and he's still smoking your hitters. I get it. He's trying to send somebody. He's trying to, kind of break his rhythm. I understand that, but at the same time, I still think it was Bush League. That dude's been there. He did nothing to make anybody think he was doing anything illegal, man. All he did was touch his hand in the dirt. He wasn't. All pitchers adjust their caps or whatever, man. He's got a spot on his hat that's been there all season long. I thought that was a low class move. A low class move. It's early, but any idea on portal players Clemson may be looking at? No, I have no idea. It's way too early, man. You probably won't you won't even fully know who's going to be available until after the College World Series. There's just no way to know that at this point in time. Portal's open all the way to July 2nd, I think it is. I know it's that first week in July. I want to say it's the 2nd. So there's a lot of time. How big a loss will Barlow be? This is going to sound worse than I mean it, but I don't think Barlow's some huge loss. I don't think it's something that can't be overcome. I'm not sure he was 100% thrilled with being moved out of a starter's role into the bullpen. He's always been a starter. Um, and by all accounts, last offseason, I think it was in fall ball, if I'm remembering right, um, I had been told that Barlow was the best looking pitcher, throughout the fall. I think it was the fall. And then he had he got hurt. I think it was against South Carolina last season. You could tell he wasn't Billy Barlow. His velocity was way down. And probably didn't have any business being out there, but they had run out of pitchers in that game. And then you get to this year, and he's fully healthy, and you got Knock and Tristan Smith and Austin Gordon starts out as your weekend starters, and Barlow is kind of relegated to the midweek role. I have a feeling he's probably going to head somewhere looking to be a weekend starter. I just don't see him being as that big of a loss. He was much better at home than he was on the road this year. But he had a couple of solid outings out of that bullpen, and he probably could have been a good piece to have out there. But he's not irreplaceable by any stretch. I just think he's probably a guy that wants to start more so than come out of the pen. Team 127 will always have a special place in the hearts of Clemson faithful. To the guys moving on, you will be missed, and wish you each nothing but the best. Backus is an amazing coach. Yeah, I've liked Eric Backus since the moment I met him. He is everything that I think a baseball coach should be. Not everybody's going to agree with that. Not everybody always, agrees with some of the things that he does on the field. I love his coaching style. I love how aggressive he is sometimes. I love how unconventional he is at times. I just don't think there's a better coach out there right now that you could get to come in and lead this program. Not as we sit here today, June 12th, 2024. But the guys who played their last game on Sunday, those are the ones you feel the most for, man. A guy like Jacob Hinderleiter, who transferred in here, he's this close to making it to Omaha in his final season of eligibility, and it ends that way in a game that the umpires had that big of an impact on. A guy like Blake Wright, who's given everything for this Clemson program over the past few years, done everything asked of him, moved from second, third, back to second, back to third. He's played a lot in both spots. He's been multiple positions in the lineup, in the batting order, man, and finishes with a 20-plus homer season. I think he had 70-something or 80-something RBIs. I forget off the top of my head. But, those are, I'm not mentioning everybody, but those are the type of guys I feel bad for, to see their careers end in a game that the umpires had that much impact on. Gordon pitched really well, threw over 90 innings. Yeah, Gordon was lights out, man. And since he's moved to the bullpen, his best outings as a closer have mostly come in 3-out save opportunities. At times when he's been asked to go more than an inning, that's when he's gotten in trouble. But, man, he pitched 5 Sunday. It was almost like the Austin Gordon of last year when he was starting. He was fantastic. And if you can get him back, and it sounds like he's going to be back next year, even though I don't think anything's set in stone by any stretch. You get him back next year, that's a big piece, man. Big piece. South Carolina pulling portal players already. Their season's been over more than a week, and I think I don't know who all they pulled out of the portal, but I know a couple of them are JUCO guys. They've also had a week head start, so. Hart can't take another record season of comebacks. Hope next season they are earning cardiac kids label again. They absolutely made it harder than it had to be sometimes, man. It seems like they were at their best after they got down. They didn't play very well when they had a lead at times. So it was a definitely an atypical kind of season, man. You just don't generally see that many come from behind wins, and they kind of made it look routine. Will Cam be 100% after third surgery? I don't see why not. I mean, it's just torn labor. Heck, down over the last few weeks of the season, if you just watch him play and didn't know he was hurt, you probably would have never known he was hurt. He found a way. He was able to start throwing the ball back into the infield after for weeks we saw him tossing it back to one of his, fellow outfielders and letting them toss it in. And he finally found a way he could throw it back in. And there was a couple of times he, fielded a ball in the outfield, not called it in the air, but fielded it in the outfield and had to get it back in a hurry. And he did it. He had some mustard on his throws. However, he figured it out. They said today he was using the lower arm slot. Nothing I ever noticed with my eyes, but I don't see why he wouldn't be 100%. But that's the guy you absolutely want to be able to turn loose on the bases because they had to rein him in this year. Even Backett said today they had to not let him get such big leads at first, so nobody was throwing over, and he wouldn't be having to dive back. They didn't have him stealing any bases at all to prevent him from sliding head first again, because that's how he hurt it, sliding head first into third, if I'm remembering right. But he said today that as far as the way it felt kind of like the same thing what he did last year against Louisville when I think his shoulder popped out. But he's gonna go play for Team USA this summer still, and he'll have it cleaned up sometime in July or repaired sometime in July, and said he'd be back at it. And I think he said a couple months. And I'd expect him to be full go by the time fall ball rolls around. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be 100%. Coach is worth his weight in gold. You don't have to sell me on that. I'm a big believer in Eric Bakich, man. That's the guy I thought they should have hired. When they were going through the process, that was the guy that I was thinking that probably should get the job based on fit and credentials and all that stuff, and some of the things he was able to do at Michigan. He's not known for being a baseball school by any stretch. Then after you meet him and you get to know him a little bit, he's just the perfect fit here, man. He is the perfect fit, and he is absolutely worth his weight in gold. Any players that might surprise us in return? Will Taylor? I don't think Taylor's going to be back. It doesn't sound that way. I mean, I guess if he gets drafted lower than or way lower than they're kind of expecting, maybe there's a possibility. But I would not be holding my breath waiting on Will Taylor to come back from the sound of it. I kind of, Backett said today they were making plans. They were planning for next year. They were making plans for next year with Tristan Smith and Will Taylor being gone. So it sounds like Tristan's probably headed off to, the team that drafts him. We know Chufo's going to be back. And other than that, I don't know yet. I'm trying to think of some guys off the top of my head. Like I talked about a few minutes ago, I think getting Chufo's back. Chufo back is huge. I think getting Gordon back would be huge, and I think he'll probably be back. If you can find a way to get Tristan Smith back, that'd be great. But again, it doesn't sound like it's heading that way. I'm of the opinion he could probably use another year in college, but if he gets drafted in a spot where he feels comfortable signing, You gotta do what you gotta do. I get it. You can finish developing in the minor leagues, but Tristan Bassett, I expect him back next year. No, I can't. I think everybody else should be back. Obertop's out of eligibility. He can't come back. Hinderleiter's out of eligibility. He can't come back. Blake Wright's out of eligibility. He can't come back. So, if you got anybody specific in mind other than Taylor, just that I didn't mention, just let me know. What is my opinion of the hire at South Carolina? I think it's an interesting choice. You're talking about a guy, I forget what is 69, 70 years old, whatever it is, who had a lot of success at LSU. Make no mistake, this guy knows the game. He is a fantastic baseball coach. But it kind of reminds me of the Lou Holtz hire, the Steve Spurrier hire. You're hiring guys that you know aren't going to be around long. And seeing the money that they're paying Monty Lee to stay and not take the head coaching job at Citadel, I think it was $550,000 a year. That's more than some ACC head coaches make. It seems like the writing is on the wall for the new hire to, maybe be there a few years and pass the torch on to Monty, if all goes according to plan. I think it's an interesting choice. He got out of coaching because of health reasons, migraine issues that are now supposedly fixed and he's not dealing with anymore. He had a couple of opportunities to get back into coaching last year and turned them down. I think Notre Dame was one of them. Maybe they didn't just hire. It's not like they went out and hired some scrub by any stretch. He's a really good coach. The question becomes, he's never had to coach in this new era of the portal and NIL and all that stuff. How's he going to navigate that? But keeping Monty on staff, that's, and I think they kept some other guys too, but I think keeping Monty on staff helps with, recruiting and helps navigate some of that stuff that the new guy's not had to mess with before when he was still at LSU. But it's an interesting hire, man. I'm gonna be curious to see how it works out. ACL recovery time for Chufo. Oh, yeah. Dog hears something outside. It's he heard it back in April. He should be good to go by it. I mean, he'll probably miss fall ball if I had to guess. But I would think he'd be probably pretty good to go by the time the preseason rolls around next, late January, early February. He should be ready to go by then. But the question is, what was he able to do during fall ball? Not exactly sure exactly when that starts. It's usually October. I would expect him to be, at the very least limited in what he can do. What about Auden Mathis? Is he out of eligibility? I think Mathis used his COVID year to come to Clemson, if I'm not mistaken. I think this was his 5th year. I'm trying. Let's see. 4 years at Richmond, 1 at Clemson, 5 total. Yep. That's going to be it for him, too. So, and it would have really sucked for him to be ejected in his final game. Gerald took off Cage, think it affected his vision. Gerald was on the struggle bus down the stretch, man. Whew. Or the past couple of weeks of the season, he was struggling mightily, and when everything he swung at and missed, it looked like he missed it by a mile. He was definitely not seeing the ball well. I mean, all ball players go through that stretch at some point or another. I have no idea whether it had anything to do with taking the protective caging off the front. He's not looking through that anyways when he's hitting the ball when it is on, but can't answer that one. Any rumblings of tampering from other programs? A little worried about somebody poaching Cam. Cam Canarella is not leaving. He made that pretty clear today. If Cam was a guy that wanted to leave for more money or a big payday, he could have done that after last season. There was plenty of tampering going on with him last year, multiple schools, and he didn't leave. He came out today and said he's not going anywhere in front of all the media, addressed those rumors that got started on Twitter by I think it was by some dude that calls himself a college baseball insider. I have no idea what his name is. Probably an anonymous Twitter account, to be quite honest. That's where a lot of these things get their teeth and start gaining some traction. But I wouldn't worry about Cam. He's not going anywhere. How many? Let's move it on over to recruiting here. How many 2025 commits do you think may pull the trigger in the next month or less? 4 names seem to be on the verge: Mills, Watts, Young, Archie. I think most of Clemson target, most of the guys right now that Clemson, let's talk about the ones that were at the big official visit weekend. I think most of those guys will be committed before the middle of July. Hardy Watts, definitely one. He told me he was looking at the first week of July. Cortez Mills, same thing. I saw what he said to one of the Rivals guys the other day. Kind of similar to what he told me in a telephone conversation right after his official visit. But at the same time, he also made it crystal clear that if there was one school that had separated themselves that much from the pack already, he'd be committed by now. I do think Clemson really helped themselves with him. I think I saw Jordan Young say he might take his into the season. I'll be surprised if that happens. And Kamar Archie is another guy who told me he was going to sit down after his official visits and make a decision. I think all 4 of those guys will be done before the end of the summer, before the end of July, to be quite honest. Watt still has an official to Michigan. Mills still has one to Miami, down there where he's from. I forget who Jordan still has official visits with. And, I even forget who I think is it Michigan Kamar Archie still has to go to, and maybe Rutgers. I can't remember. But Archie's a guy that doesn't do many interviews. I was actually quite surprised when I was able to get him on the phone last week. And there's several of these guys that you talk to sometimes, and you just it just kind of jumps right off at you that guy is the perfect fit for what Clemson's looking for, and Kamar Archie's one. He is so personable. He might be the best interview I've ever done. I asked him one question, man, and he started talking, and he didn't stop for about 2-3, probably 2 minutes. And you can say a lot of words in 2 minutes, man. I remember, I think I only had to ask him about 3 questions, man, and he had told me everything I needed to know, and the conversation went on, I think, about 10 minutes. He's such a personable guy, man. He's real easy to like. And Clemson knocked it out of the park with him on their official visit weekend. Now you just have to get through these other visits. Watts is actually he scratched a couple. One of them to Duke. Scratched another one. Can't remember what it was right off the top of my head. But again, he still got to go to Michigan, and that's the big one for him. Out of those four guys you've mentioned right here, Young's the only one I've not talking to in a while, or talked to in a while. Some of these guys, once they start getting this national exposure, they don't talk to us little local guys anymore. And I've tried to reach out to Young Jordan a couple of times since the elite retreat, and just had no luck getting a hold of him. He used to talk to me all the time, last year, but not so much now. That's the way it goes in this business sometimes. You take the good with the bad. But answering your question, I think there's going to be a bunch of that pull the trigger in the next month or so. And as far as Clemson's chances with those four guys, I think Clemson did a lot to help themselves with Cortez. It's just going to be, can they hold off Miami, who's kind of been the sentimental favorite? Because, that's where he's from. Although I don't know that Miami's done the best job of recruiting him. And he didn't really come out right and say anything. Sometimes you can tell by the tone. That was kind of the impression I got. So I think Clemson's in a good spot with him. I think Clemson's in a great spot with Hardy Watts. I've had 2 conversations with him in the past 6 weeks, man, and he goes on and on about how much he likes it. Same thing about Archie. I think he's the perfect fit for what Clemson's looking for. It really, really resonated with him that he was the only linebacker invited to that event. I know they've offered a couple more since because he's kind of, he's taking his time with his decision. He's going to see his visits through. Clemson's got to do their due diligence and make sure they're covered in case they miss on him. And who knows? They might very well miss on him. He's still got a couple more visits to take. I know one of them was to Rutgers, if that one wasn't last weekend. And then there's one more. I can't remember if it's Michigan or Penn State. I think it's one of those two. But I do like Clemson's chances with all 4. Not saying they'll get all 4, but I think I like their chances with them. Did Tate Reynolds get to meet the baseball staff? By rule, he's not allowed to talk to the baseball coaches until August. So that's what he told me anyways. Got to have a conversation with him. Matter of fact, the day he announced the offer, I actually called him from my truck after that baseball game Sunday. He was in town most of last week. He threw on Tuesday at camp, came back and threw again on Friday, I think it was. Told me he did some fishing while he was here on the lake. I assume it was Lake Hartwell. I guess it could have been Kiowee. I don't know which one it was, but he left out early Sunday morning, got home in time he actually told me, when I got in touch with him, he was actually watching the Clemson-Florida game, or when he responded to my text, he had just gotten home and he was watching the Clemson-Florida baseball game. And as soon as I got to the truck, I called him and we hooked up and talked for a few minutes. But that's another guy, man, that, if you talk to him, you can tell, which is the case with a lot of these guys, man. He's just, he's the right fit. And if you see him in person, he's absolutely what Garrett Riley loves in a quarterback. He's big. He's got big old legs, big old thighs, man. He is a big boy. He looks 6'3", probably. I'm guessing probably 215, 220. He's much heavier than the recruiting services are listing him at right now. I guess that's an old weight that hasn't been updated in a while. But he flat out told me, man, he's still a little raw. He's very athletic. He's got a big arm, man. God, he's got tremendous arm strength, but he's still a little bit raw. Told me he doesn't work with. He hasn't been, or to this point, he hasn't been working with any specialized QB coaches or anything the way a lot of other recruits have done at this stage in their recruitment. He was supposed to go play baseball. Now everybody's wanting him as a quarterback, so now he's rethinking things. He's committed to Arizona State to play baseball. So, I think he fits everything Garrett Riley looks for in a quarterback, though, man. He can move. He's mobile. He's big. He's strong. Big arm. Again, he's just a little bit raw at this point, but he's still got 2 more years in high school. A lot of guys are going to still be raw at this point. Warm and fuzzies. David Sanders is off board due to NIL. I've told y'all for weeks, man, I did not like Clemson's chances with David Sanders. I don't know, man. I heard a couple of things back in May that just made me really believe that thing was going to head in a different direction. Watt signing gives Clemson 4 offensive linemen. Do they still take a 5th if they miss on Sanders? I don't know the answer to that. If they don't get Sanders, they might stop at 4. I think that's a very distinct possibility. And let's say you get Watts and you stop at 4. You got to be thrilled with the 4 you got. Coming into the cycle, I didn't know that they were going to take as many as 4 or 5. I was thinking 3, maybe 4. Now they're definitely going to take 4. I watched Braden Jacobs work out this weekend. Braden Jacobs and Easton Ware both came down and worked out at camp over the weekend. That is just so rare for committed guys to do in this day and age. There's just no reason for them to other than to come and get a little bit of coaching from Matt Luke. And I still stand by saying I think Easton Ware's a little, fairly undervalued by the services. And Braden Jacobs is a monster, man. You come out the door and he's out there with all those guys, and he looks like a literal mountain out there among those guys. He's 6'7" or whatever it is, man. He is a ginormous kid. And he's just about to start his senior season. Man, and he moves so well for a guy that size. You got to – if they could add Watts to the 4 that they've got, the 3 that they've got, that's a home run in my book, man, because I think the Byrne kid's got a ton of potential to another big old guy. You can tell Matt Luke's trying to add some size to that room. Heard Mills' mom and dad. Yeah, he said they all loved it, man. All of them. They had a jam up time while they were down here. He speaks real highly of Tyler Grisham. It's just a matter of what happens that on that Miami visit. Sounded like, yes, I expect Becerra back. Sanders is off the board unless you're giving a couple. I don't know that anybody's giving him a couple million. I don't know that anybody's giving any tackle coming out of high school or offensive lineman coming out of high school that kind of money. But yeah, I've said all along NIL is going to be a factor. It was just going to depend on, where it was on his list of priorities. I don't know that anybody's giving him a couple million, but it's absolutely going to play a part. Will Clemson take both Brady and Tate if they give verbals? First come, first serve, man. 2 offers, 1 spot. You hand them out to 2 guys you like. Hey, Brady Hart killed it at camp the other day. To me, Reynolds is the guy that looks more like a Garrett Riley quarterback. Reynolds is taller. He's more wiry. He's still got plenty of room to add some bulk to that frame, but he's a wiry dude, but he's also got he's got a cannon for an arm, man. He's a little bit more polished at this point than Tate is. But if you're a Clemson fan, I would be happy with landing either one of those guys. I thought it was funny that as soon as Hart announces the offer, you get some crystal balls start popping out for him, and the way it was explained to me the other day, Tate actually was the guy that got the offer first. He just didn't announce it until later, and it got. And I'm not speaking for anybody here. This is just my opinion. I think Tate is probably the guy that fits better with what Clemson or what Garrett Riley wants to do on offense. Not saying Brady Hart can't do it. He absolutely can. I think they're both good fits. I just think Tate Reynolds and his skill set might be a little bit better of a fit. Dogs barking at you, stranger danger. I was gone for, good Lord, man, almost 2 weeks. That's why I came home Sunday. I had already made a decision to come home Sunday. Even if Clemson won, I was going to come home Sunday and miss the game Monday. Because if they had won and made it to Omaha, I was going to have to head right back out Wednesday morning. So I wanted to come home and be at home a couple of days. Man, my grass, holy crap. It must have rained a bunch while I was gone because it sure did grow a lot while I was gone. Man, when I come in the door Sunday night, my dog, and I got a big dog, man. She's part pit and part lab. So she's a big dog. When I come in the door, I didn't even make it in, man. She had jumped up in my arms and was like literally hugging me. I've never seen her do that before. So I think my dog did miss me a little bit. BGPO, what's up, brother? What's good with you? I don't know who beat up my truck. Somebody dinged up my truck in lot 5 Tuesday morning, I think it was, while I was at camp, though. And whoever it was had to be in a big old damn truck. Because they got me right. And I drive a full-size Silverado. Got me right on the corner of the hood, right above the headlight. So it had to be something up off the ground. I'd love to know who it was. I mean, geez, I get it. It's an accident, man. At least you could leave me a note, apologize or something. Even if you leave the scene, man. Just say, hey, man, I dinged your truck. Sorry. But yeah, somebody definitely dinged it up in lot 5 the other day. "2026 kid from Carver's Bay going to be a 4-star for you." Hey, Zion Yales, Zion Giles, I think is how you say it. I've had 3 conversations with that guy, and I'm still not sure how to say his last name. I keep forgetting to ask him. I don't know if it's Giles or Giles. I've been saying Giles. Heck, I found out today I've been spelling Andrew Chufo's name wrong all season long. As a writer, that is the most I cannot tell you how infuriating it is. I've been spelling it Cuifo all season, ever since the day he stepped foot on campus, man, and find out today is Ciufo. I doubt he's going to be listening to this, but apologies, Andrew, if you are. I can't tell you how much that ticks me off to realize that I've been doing that. But yeah, I think Zion is absolutely going to be a 4-star. And that is a kid that grew up rooting for Clemson. Um, a kid that's not even started his junior season of high school and already knows how to handle himself in an interview situation. Very mature, very down to earth, wise beyond his years. I remember in one of the interviews I did with him, one of the things he's dreamed of all his life is running down that hill. So you got to like Clemson's chances with a guy like that. And I always love seeing the guys here in the PD get a little bit of love, and I'm always going to show them a little bit of love when I can. As soon as I found out he visited back in March, man, I kind of been on him because he's right down the road from me. And heck, I even did a story on a kid that plays linebacker at Florence Christian, and he's a rising sophomore and went to camp this summer. I'm always going to show the love to the PD guys, and not all of them are going to be Power 5 talents, but Zion Giles, Power 5 talent. He was absolutely. He came to camp last week and worked out, and the goal is obviously to earn one of those offers from Clemson. He did not know, or he was not really expecting to be one of these early offers. He thought it might, if it was going to come, it was going to come later in the process, and he leaves town with one, man. It's just his is a great story. Heard from the media this week that Riley has to learn the Clemson offense. Where do these narratives come from? My first question would be, heard from who in the media that Riley needs to learn the Clemson offense? That would be my first question, and then I could better answer that. But without knowing who said it, there's so many guys on Twitter, especially some of these anonymous Twitter accounts. Some of them are really good. Some of them have a lot of good information. Some of them throw crap against the wall and hope something sticks. And some of them are out here just farming for clicks and looking for engagement. And those kind of takes absolutely will get you attention. But anybody that thinks the offense is still the same as it was the year before last, before Garrett Riley got to Clemson, they're not really watching what's happening on the field, man. You can there's differences, man. Some of them are subtle differences, but they're differences. Even the first half of last season, man, the blocking scheme was up front was even, the spacing was a little bit different with how they aligned up. The wide receiver routes are different. It's still football, man. There's going to be a lot of the same plays. So a lot of the same plays from one offense to the next are going to overlap. So a lot of the plays from the old offense still going to be a part of the new offense, but there's also been some new things that we did not see before Garrett got to town. The only thing I can say, man, is Dabo's not calling the plays. He's not got Garrett Riley on a leash, letting him only call this play or that play or this. I mean, that's not what Dabo Swinney hired the guy for, man. Dabo Swinney hired that guy to come in to Clemson, revamp that offense, and you don't bring him in if you're not going to let him do what you hired him to do. Not too bad of a crowd here tonight, considering we're doing it on a Wednesday rather than a Monday. Not sure what day we're going to do it next week. If it any way possible, we'll be doing it on Monday. Obviously, only way is if I have a ball game Monday night. If I do, we'll schedule it for the earliest possible date that I do not. So if I have one Monday and don't have one Tuesday, then that's when we'll do it. But I will. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll let you know there. Obviously, in the Facebook group, I always let you know there. Still had a pretty good crowd here tonight, despite being here on a Wednesday rather than a Monday. Take some time off. I can't take time off in June, man. I just can't do it. Just can't do it. I am going to be home for a good little stretch now, but I can't take no time off. Either way, there's when you have to cover recruiting, man, there's not really a lot of time off, man. I am going to take a vacation in July, though. Last week of July, so I will not be at the ACC kickoff. So I am taking a vacation that week. That was already planned before I took the new gig here with TCI. But a lot of baseball stuff on the site today, man. From Bakich and Cam Canarella and Aiden Canuck all met with the media today. A lot of good stuff. Check it out, Clemson Insider. And appreciate everybody that tuned in. And we will be right back here next week, and I will let you know what day.